All right, y'all. Peace. Come in, come in, come in. As you're coming in, share this live. As you're coming in, share this live. Today, it's a Friday. TGIF, right? If you're a TGIF type of person, here we are, right? Ending off the week. Work mode as usual. Today I want to talk about the different uses of large acreage. I want to talk about how we come in contact with large acreage. I want to talk about how we can even flip large acreage for a profit, right? So that's what we're going to focus at on large acreage, right? One thing about large acreage is that when we're flipping land and we're coming into contact with large acreage, when we're flipping any size land for any amount, that offer has to be positioned on the front to make it favorable for us, right? If that offer is not favorable for us, then we can't make money on the back end. So we have to study data, pull data, know what the market is doing, right? We just don't go out into a market and start placing offers out into a market without having the metrics and the data points to support where we're going with our campaign. Hope that makes sense, right? If you want to make money in this space, right? This is a data driven industry. You have to research the areas that you want to participate in. You need to know the price point. You need to know the price per acre, right? Finding out average median price of how much those people make in that area. All of these things supports the decisions that we make, right? You need to know what that said county offers. How much land do they have available? People per square mile. These are all metric points that we take into consideration. Why? People per square mile. Because that says to us how rural or how populated an area is, right? The more populated it is, typically you'll find that those areas, they don't have a lot of vacant land. The more populated, naturally, the land is occupied, right? When the people per square mile is lower, that says to us that this may be a rural or more rural than a populated area. Now you can start to make decisions with your campaign. Now you can start to go after the type of land that you want to go after. Do you want an infill lot? INFILL. What's an infill lot? Typically, an infill lot is going to be found in the suburban or urban area. The highest and best use for an infill lot will probably 98% of the time would be to put a structure on that. Typically, it is always zoned residential when we're dealing with infill lots, right? Certain areas that have infill lots, sometimes they're zoned for mobile home uses. That depends on the county. Typically, those are in slower areas, not city areas and things of that nature. Let's pause there. When we're dealing with mobile homes and mobile home or land that's zoned for mobile homes, most people have no idea or unaware of how powerful that asset is. That is our number one selling product. Land that's zoned for mobile homes. If you can get your hands on a piece of land that's zoned for mobile homes, you'll do really well. Why? Why, you ask? Why does that sell so well for you? Because people want the luxury to do what they want to do on their land, right? They don't want to be confined or restricted by the county and told what they can do or put on their land. That's why that product works so well for us. So while most city dwellers, right, they focus on the activities that happen in the city, they never take time to think what happens outside of the confinements of where I normally dwell. There's a whole nother world out there. Clearly, city lots will sell because that's where the bulk of the people is at. It will always be occupied, clearly, right? But with that, what comes with that? Competition comes with that. High prices come with that, right? Much savvy investors, cutthroat practices come with populated, popular areas. Further we push out, it gets a little more laxed, right? So these are some of the metrics that we take into consideration, and that helps us decide what we want to go after. Today I said we'll mention large acreage. What's large acreage? Infill lots, I explained what that is, right? Larger acreage would be, 3 acres and above, 5 acres, 10 acres, 20 acres, 40 acres. Our largest land acquisition has been 260 acres. So whatever you find, right? But keep in mind, as a land flipper, the larger the acreage, when you're dealing with that seller, typically the more savvy they are. You have to think, now you're doing the business. Do you think people that own 40-acre plots, own 80 acres, own 30 acres, they know nothing? They know something. Even if the people that own 2 acres, they probably know something. But sometimes, right, we find people that may own an acre, 4 acres, 5 acres. They may have inherited it and they just may have been living on it. And when they're ready to sell, they just want to get rid of it, right? So they're not checking the market. They don't know what the comps are in the area and things like that. Those are people that we sometimes have to think for them. When we're dealing with larger acreage, 40 acres, 60 acres and above and things like that, those sellers are typically well aware of what they have, price per acre, what's moving in the area and things like that. Can you get a deal from them? Yes, you can. I'm just saying that you need to be educated and swift to match their IQ level because they'll take advantage of you, right? You need to know what kind of questions to ask. You need to know how to get the information out of him to paint the picture to make sure it's a sound piece that you're dealing with. That's what I'm saying, right? So it all works. Sometimes even with dealing large acreage, it could just be that they need the money flat out. Or it could just be they're done with utilizing the property and they may know that they're letting it go for a discounted price. They just want to wash their hands with it. We never know why someone would want to sell their land. But I can tell you this, if there's no offer out to buy any land, small acreage or large acreage, then you probably won't ever score. Offers is how businesses conduct themselves. You have to have an offer to provide or an offer that you can pick up something, right? And then you do the business. Let's talk about the uses. Large acreage. Let's talk about the uses of large acreage, right? So when we're dealing with large acreage, one of our products that sell really well with us is rural vacant land, rural land, large acreage that's zoned for agriculture, Ag 1, no restrictions. That does really well with us. Not off-grid. There's a difference than rural vacant land and off-grid land. The major difference between those two is off-grid, there's no utilities whatsoever in the area. It's off-grid, right? There's no utilities. You have to bring in things like solar panels, rainwater, catch water, and things like that. You have to bring in that ruffian style and those concepts that support off-grid. And that's a whole niche, right? That's why we love this industry because you can pick and choose which product that you want to deal with. Off-grid land sells really well as well. There's a whole audience that's into that type of thing. What we like, what's good for us and has been good for us is rural vacant land, right? Not off-grid. Rural vacant land where you can still tap into the electricity in the area. Sometimes we may need septic or well as utility. Sometimes it's rural, but it's not so rural that there's no city sewage that it hooks up to. But if it's really rural, sometimes, most of the time, it's going to be septic or well, right? But that's not something that we pay for. It's something that we need to know about so we'll know what questions to ask, right? Like, has a perk test been performed on this property? What's a perk test? A perk test is a test that's ran to test the soil to see if it's suitable for a septic system. You need to know all of these things, right? That's why we always say it's more to just saying, I want to buy land. It's more to saying, I just want to flip land. You need to know, right? The lingo. You need to know the definitions. You need to know what's happening so you'll know how to have that conversation once you get on the phone with a prospective seller, right? It'll make for an easier transaction for you in for them. They'll respect your knowledge base when you can match theirs. I've seen it happen. I even seen it happen to myself when we were younger in our land investing days. They will take advantage of you. We've been taken advantage of. So we don't profess that we always had the same knowledge base, because with growth becomes wisdom. Wisdom comes with growth. So we've learned, and you learn from your mistakes, right? Savvy sellers, quick story. Older guy we were buying land from. I forget the acreage size it was. I don't know if it was a 5-acre piece, but the conversation went like this. We were interested in buying his 5-acre piece. He was an older guy, right? And he said to us, we know he had owned quite a few pieces in the area. And he said to us, hey, man, I'm just an old fella, man. And I used to do this business. I was deep involved in it. I'm older now. I'm looking to retire. I'm looking to slow down. I'm going to just go in and let it go. So we were excited about it. We was a lot younger in our career. We were excited to have the opportunity to pick up on the 5-acre. What we didn't know, because we didn't have the knowledge or the skill set at that particular point, is that we didn't look into every other piece that he had, which we should have, because we have the capability to see what a person owns, right? We didn't look at the rest of the land that he owned, because if we would have looked into his portfolio of what he had in that said county, we would have noticed that that piece that we were trying to buy, that was the worst of what he had. So, of course, he wants to dump the worst and keep the best. So he told us, yeah, I want to get out of the business. Sure, I'll sell it. We bought it. Did we make a ton of money off it? No, we didn't lose on the deal either. Thank God. We didn't lose any money, but we didn't make the kind of money that we thought that we would make on the deal. We got learned from that transaction. Funny story is, we moved over to the next county and we ran across the same guy who owned just as much land in the county next to the other county. Then we contacted him again. And then when we contacted him, we said, I thought you were getting out of the business. He said, man, I'll sell you this land over here, but it won't be as cheap as the last piece that I sold you. They'll tell you anything. If you don't know how to smoke out what's going on, if you don't know how to handle yourself, that's why the education in this business is key. You need to know what you're looking at. You need to know how to handle yourself with dealing with sellers. I saw somebody teaching. I never call out names, right? I'm not the guy. I don't ever want to degrade anybody that looks like me from attempting to do something positive in a constructive manner. But I did see someone teaching land that looks like us, right? Kudos, great. I'm not a hater, right? You won't affect what I do, right? It's more than enough for going around. I won't say names because that's not what I do. But I saw them telling someone how to go out, teaching online on how to go out and buy land for discounted prices, right? And he did really well. But there was something that he did to where I said, I'm not sure. You're not telling everything about that. He was telling them that the land across the street, if it's going for $40,000 and we see the vacant land across the other side of the street, we want to put in an offer for $30,000. And that creates a $10,000 window for equity inside of the deal. As a person that's looking to flip land, those margins are too tight, right? Why are those margins too tight? Because he didn't tell them everything that comes along with the full complexity of the transaction. Meaning that once we buy, right, there's closing costs. Although land has the lowest closing costs in contrast to houses, there's still closing costs. There's still title fees, right? Which may run you $2,000, $2,500. So now if we add 30, right, add that on, that's $32,500, right? Now that went from $10,000 to $8,000. If the land across the street is selling for 40, what are you going to list yours at? You have to leave room for people to make offer prices to buy. People like to get deals. So we always leave room and consider that as well. because whatever you list at, typically you don't sell at. That's why we typically list higher so they can feel like they're getting a deal. Now, if you're comfortable after all of those numbers get crunched up, and then you have to ask, are you putting it on the market by yourself? Is there not a realtor that's going to put it in the local MLS for you? If there is, there's going to be a realtor fee in land that can range from anywhere from 6%, top land brokers, all the way to 10%. Let's just go with an average realtor, 6% of that price point. That's a couple of thousand, 3,000, 4,000. Now you see why that's too tight to tell someone if it's going for 40, your offer should be 30. There's no more money left. And that means that it has to be the perfect scenario. That means that everything has to go right in that transaction. So we don't tell you to, we tell you we have to, the catch is to be able to get it as low as possible. That's the catch. As with any other business, you have to be able to buy low so you can sell high. That's how the money is made. And our job is, when we come into contact with land, our job is to find reasons of why we want to make a lower offer. Even if we have an agreed offer, we look for any and everything that we can go back to the seller to drop that price. New people are uncomfortable with dropping price. But when you get experience, then you are a lot more comfortable with having conversations and dropping price. When you're new, trust me, your mouth won't say what your mind is telling it to say. It's just the truth. And we're guilty of that, right? That has happened. You want to drop the price, you get on the phone, you pick up the phone, you're saying, man, I need to drop this price by 10 grand. That's extremely hard, right? For a new person. But it's something that as you grow in your business, it's something that you become accustomed to. Now, back to what the uses could be for large acreage. Large acreage, clearly, you can farm on it. Large acreage. How much land do you need for personal use for a family if you were farming on it? Most people, they put these big numbers out there. Hey, I want 30 acres. Hey, I need 20 acres. Hey, I need 40 acres. You have to maintain that land. If it's for personal use, you have to maintain that land, right? For a family, acre, 2 acres, that suffice. It produces a lot of crops. Your family will never go hungry with just an acre. You can eat all year long, depending on where that land is situated at. Which areas are most conducive for growing crops? Drop it in the comments. It's pretty easy. Which areas is most conducive for growing crops and things of that nature? Drop it in the comments. It's really easy. And I'll tell you a story behind that. So we all know that, or we should know, culturally, we should know that, she said, I would say good weather. Good weather is typically the South, right? So this is a interesting story. You ever wondered why they call up north people city slickers and things like that? You ever wondered why? Right. So here's the story, right? Back then, some years ago, when we were thriving culturally, we were in more ownership of land. When we were thriving culturally more, we were in ownership of farms, right? That was a major asset class to grow food and for business. It produced money. People sold crops. It was a big industry, right? And then they push people that look like me up north, right? It's like the biggest trick. Go up north. That's the fast life, right? And it was very appealing. And they did a lot of fear-mongering tactics. Still to this day, there's a lot of fear-mongering tactics that was held in the South. Why? because they wanted to push them out of the South. Why? Because that land is deemed to be more valuable than land in the North. That's because of the South has better weather all year round than the North. It's conducive for crops all year around. Slick. So you go there so we can take over all of this here. Now, whether it was stolen, however it was a lot of underhanded practices. But that's the whole premise of why they wanted you to get out of there. Now, some say, well, why would a set group of people abandon their land that's so valuable? Well, for good reason, right? It was for good reason that we chose to come north. We were being lynched. We were being burnt. We were being murdered. It was some horrendous things that has happened to us. So they chose to flee from the north. From the south to the north. Surrendering, giving up, walking away from all of their valuable land in the south. To this day, that's why you see now what color are those states in the south and all of those things. That's just a quick little history lesson because not a lot of people understand how we got to where we got from. So that's just a quick history lesson. So when it comes to farmland, can you use farmland up north? Absolutely. But you're going to be restricted at some point because of the weather, right? So that's why certain crops are not grown in the north, like pineapples and things like that. Pineapples have to be in warmer climate all year round, oranges and things like that. I'm no expert when it comes to farming, but we did run a farming program where we was partnered with a farmer. And this is where I picked up all the farming practices and things like that. So I know a little bit about a little bit, but my lane is I can talk about the land component of farming because I do know about that. Large acreage, we can farm on it. Family compounds. Everybody wants the family compounds in homestead. This is really good, right? Let's talk about the family compounds. If you want your family compounds, first thing I always ask people, first questions I always pose to people is, where are you willing to go? Where are you willing to live with your family compound? Are you willing to live on the outskirts, outside of the city limits and things like that? Because that's where family compounds are usually more prevalent, and that is the zoning is conducive for family compounds. Inside of the city limits, you're restricted to what you can build, how many structures can go on that land. You have to do what the law says inside of the city limits. That's why you don't see a lot of family compounds in urban and suburban areas, right? They tell you how many houses, how many structures, what size houses, what's the setbacks, and all of those things. When you get outside of the confinements of the restrictions in the city limits and things like that, now you have this. This is why I said one of our top selling pieces of land and properties are those that have no restrictions, because people want that flexibility. If I want to put 5 structures on my land, I can. If I want to put 10, I can. So I always ask, how far out are you willing to go? It's a real question. If you want the flexibility to do what you want to do with your land, you have to, for me, I'll give you what my answer is. If I had it my way, in the perfect world, I want to be right outside of the city limits. Like if this was the line, and if I could just put a foot over the line, that would be absolutely perfect. Because I don't want to be too far out. Not me. I want to be away from the city, but close enough to get back to it on a regular basis. That's for me. For me. Some people may want to be further out, far as possible. Then that's where you find land that's unrestricted. Then you'll be able to do whatever you want to do. Desert land and things like that, right? How far do you want to go in the desert? We found some really cool places that, where about that? Out in the middle of the desert, they have subdivisions out in the middle of the desert and things like that. I ain't saying off-grid desert land. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it's deep in the desert that they have put infrastructure, roads, in utilities, well, not utilities, well, electric, you still need septic and well out there, and it's within 30 minutes from whatever that major city is. That's out there. That has happened. That is happening currently, and that will continue to happen. That's a great place to do your family compound in places like that. So, family compound is a hot topic. It's something that always comes up in our feed in our inbox because we do have a program or mini course that we did on family compounds, where to go out and find your family compound, the area for it, everything that goes into family compounds, checking zoning, utilities, road frontage, and things like that. So that's exactly where you have to look for. That's the first question you should ask yourself. How far am I willing to go out for my family compound? And am I really ready for that lifestyle? Word of advice for me is safety first. If you look like me, right, always check the population of where you're going and what is that population? What race is there, right? You don't want to be nowhere near sundown town. Just keeping it 100. Unless you want to be in near sundown town. Me, myself, no. I would like to, I need to be near some of us. All right? So those are some of the many uses of large acreage. And clearly, you have large acreage that's used for campsites. You have large acreage that's used for hunting, ATV, all of that. And I've just been telling us that, this is the new wave, right? You want to go out and start a new business? Start it with recreational land. There's a group called Throw That Dirt from out in Louisiana. Those boys, they took like a 40-acre piece, and all they did was they imparted some roads in it for ATVs. That's their business model. People come from all throughout the world to ride ATVs through that property. They have speakers in the trees, really fun. People out there getting dirty and all of that. It's fun for people, right? There's no structures. They don't have a commercial building. You don't understand the power in vacant land if you don't see that that's a business model. Outdoor uses, outdoor experiences. That's what people are looking towards. They're looking for experiences. So we say invest. That's why we say invest in dirt. It's a clean way to make money. We only think that we can do one thing with the dirt, and that's put a house on it. And that's not true. Several ways to monetize it, besides even selling it, even keeping it for yourself. This is how you open up your own businesses without needing a ton of money. Through dirt. Were you aware that you can just Airbnb dirt? Were you aware of that? That you can Airbnb vacant land. There's a site just like Airbnb, but it's dedicated to vacant land. And people pay for your land to go camping. $60 a night, $70 a night. Larger the acreage, the price goes up. $100 a night. She said paintball in the comments. Absolutely. These are all things that people are making money with vacant land on. Shooting ranges on the land. Just nature trails sometimes. People sometimes just want to have a safe place to just go walk. Just walking trails. So once we have a full understanding of all the things that could be done, then I think more of us would be considering the space. And, it's a lesser price point depending on your area, but it's a lesser price point than the housing market. All right, y'all. Definitely want to tap in today. Didn't really want much, right? I just wanted to tap in. Why did I want to tap in today? Because what most people are unaware of, that this is me studying myself. So we come and we speak, we evaluate what we speak about. This is us growing, right? And you should do that. This is me holding myself accountable. This is how we get the most out of ourselves. Thank you. Said gave some good information. Right? Some people say, oh man, you speak it fluidly. Well, that's time on the clock. I didn't always speak it fluidly. This is why I said, even when I don't feel like doing a live, I didn't feel like doing a live today, but we have to do things even when we don't feel like doing them. That's the catch right there. Doing it even when you don't feel like doing it. That is the catch. Don't let yourself off the hook. Check your emotions at the door and do what you said you were going to do. It'll serve you better. Your financial statement will look better. Right? Today I just talked about land. Usually these days I'm talking about the mindset. Why the mindset? Because land is just the byproduct that we use to get to where we're trying to get to. All of these things are just vehicles for us to get to where we're trying to get to. Your job is just a vehicle. Land is just a vehicle. Houses is just a vehicle. Stock is just a vehicle. Crypto is just a vehicle. The restaurant is just a vehicle. This is the driver. Right? So I always want to close with that. Be encouraged, be inspired, and more importantly, we have to work on the mental. It's not about the vehicle. It's about the driver of the vehicle. And once you get that and understand that, you can drive any vehicle. All right, so I'm going to leave on that note. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your weekend. Even on the weekends, we do live. We'll be going live. Even tomorrow, we'll be going live tomorrow for the reasons that I just stated, to continuously work on ourselves. That's it. To continuously work on ourselves. I've been speaking for 32 minutes straight. I just checked the time. I didn't pause. I didn't walk away. I gave you 32 minutes of something different. Touched on a couple of different points. That is me working on myself. Like I'm really timing myself. I'm really listening to myself so we can go back and be better. And I tell that because I hope that rubs off on somebody. It may not be for you to speak. It may be for you to cook a meal or something. Just get the most out of yourself. That's all I'm saying. Just get the most out of you. Whatever it is that you're doing, get the most out of you. And it just takes a little bit to get a lot. Consistently a little bit. It'll add up. You don't have to tackle the full assignment in one day. But a little bit over time equals a lot. That's why I said we even go live on the weekend. Because 7 days a week turns into 14 days. 14 days turn into 2 months. That turns into 6 months. And the more you do a thing, it just starts to flow. You start to be in flow. I don't care what the subject is. I don't care what the task is. Land, owning a restaurant, washing cars, consistently do it. And it becomes second nature. We are habitual creatures. Right? Get those neural pathways to be habitual with whatever you're doing. And things just tend to work out. That's all I'm saying. Yep. Routine and rhythm. That's an actual fact. Muscle memory. And then you do it so much on a daily basis that your mental and your physical start yearning for it then you can't live without it. It's like going to the gym. I work out. I don't know if you know I work out, but people think that I necessarily like going to the gym. I don't mind going to the gym, but I'm not a gym head. But my body is conditioned to go to the gym because I've been going so long. It's all the same thing. What's your habits? What have you trained yourself? Just like people that work 9 to 5, you have trained yourself to be on time for that job. Even on your days off. You probably wake up at the same time. You have trained. You get where I'm going with that. All right, because we can't talk a long time, and I do want to. Tonight, I'm gonna treat myself. I'm gonna go out, um, nice restaurant, and let my hair down a little bit. I don't really drink a lot of alcohol, but I'm a social drinker. And if I do drink alcohol, it will be on the weekends. And I'm gonna have a drink tonight. We worked hard this week, and we'll be back tomorrow with more information. If you're not following this page, please follow this page. Tell a friend to tell a friend. I think the message is important. I think this message is vital that we get more people involved in this space. Let's make this the new cool, right? Let's make this the new cool. It don't have to be the only cool. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that owning land, having conversations about land, having conversations about finances is something that needs to be added on with the other things that you indulge in. I understand that people won't go cold turkey. What I mean by cold turkey, they won't stop scrolling. They won't stop participating in watching fights and ignorant and salacious things and things like that. I'm not asking to do that. I'm not asking for you to do anything. I think it's a smart idea that you incorporate some other things that's meaningful along with the other things that you indulge in. And hopefully, right, the positive things that's working start to take over some of the negative things that you indulge in. I'm not sitting high and looking low. We're all guilty of it, is what I'm saying. But it makes sense that you'll be probably doing better if you surround your ecosystem with nothing with things except things that is conducive to growth. And that's a fact. Oh God. That was something that I was thinking about one day too. And I was like, how do you have negative thoughts? You ever thought about that? Why do you have negative thoughts? Why? Why do you have negative thoughts? Because you are your predominant thought. Whatever the predominant thought is what you get. Whatever the predominant thought is. He said experiences. That's a fact. But see, if you really dive into that, and if you were really consciously curating the experiences that you want to have for yourself, wouldn't you design your world to just have great experiences? Wouldn't you design your world to only have positive things going inside what you're listening to, what you're watching? Wouldn't that make sense? So these days when I say live in a bubble, people don't really get and understand what I'm saying. Curate your space and your world, because you absolutely can. Curate it for what you want your outcome to be. Why do we think that we have to have what's given to us? You have to have what they put on the TV. You have to have what they put in your timeline, right? And your timeline is only what you're really asking for, because they give you more of what you're asking for. So that's why you have negative thoughts. And most people are not even checking the negative thought. What do I mean by checking it? When it comes, you have to counter it. You have to say, no, that's not going to be the dominant thought. We study this stuff. The dominant thought is what you're going to get. What conversations are you having with yourself? They laughed when they told you that talking to yourself was crazy. That's not true. You should talk to yourself. But what are you saying to yourself? And what do you feel, more importantly? This is a deep dive, right? And I'm going to go because I'm not going down here, but I'm going to go. What do you feel about what you're saying to yourself? Because you could chant a whole bunch of shit. The next step is, what do you feel about what you're thinking? Because that's really the catch. The catch is your mood, your feeling will drive the emotion. The emotion will dictate what you're projecting out into the universe. And therefore, that is what you're going to get back. He said, where energy goes, the energy flows. All right, we won't go down that rabbit hole. Not this evening. Um, but I appreciate y'all for kicking it with me. The time that we have spent. I'm going to do my best to enjoy myself tonight. So you got to be conscious about that. When I say do my best to enjoy myself, do my best to feel good about myself, do my best to make sure I'm having a good experience. You have to consciously think about these things. What are you feeling right now? Are you beating yourself up? Don't beat yourself up. You're going to get more of that experience. Are you upset about your results? It's cool to acknowledge it, but you can't stay upset because you're going to get more. And I understand that you've been how you've been, including myself. We've not have been taught how this works for so long that now it takes a conscious effort to go against what we have been conditioned in to think and be. But if you don't at least have the conversation, that's why I say how we don't have daily conversations about certain things is crazy to me. Like finances, how we don't talk about finances on a daily basis, but we want the financial statement to change. That makes no sense. It's an uphill battle, but I'm telling the truth. All right, people. This is the third time that I said I'm leaving. I'm leaving this time, though. Yeah, we'll check back in tomorrow.